Now, students, I've been talking about privacy and confidentiality. So when we talk about privacy, the key word there that you need to remember is that privacy, private. Okay, I don't want something to be public. I want it to be private. In other words, I want it to be kept with me. Okay, I don't want it to be shared with others. That's your privacy. When I talk about confidentiality, I want the information to be taken in confidence. In other words, confidence, itago natin. Okay? Pag sinabi kong confidence, I trust you that you will keep this information. Now, privacy and confidentiality, undeniably, they go hand in hand. Okay? Undeniably, they go hand in hand. Ibig sabihin, privacy without confidentiality could not exist, no? And vice versa. Now, let's differentiate the two. Now, take note that privacy is a situation when a person is free from public interference. Diba, oftentimes we differentiate public versus private. So I would say my life is private because you do not know what's happening in my private life. No? I'm free from public interference. And confidentiality is a situation when a person is kept, when an information is kept secret from the reach of any other person. So the key word there that you can encounter is that the information is kept secret from the reach of any other person. Okay, ganito yung isipin natin. Pag privacy, guys, the privacy usually refers to the person. And when I talk about confidentiality, confidentiality usually refers to the information. Okay, confidentiality refers to the information. Now, what do we mean by that? No? Halimbawa ako, ayaw kong tumanggap ng bisita sa hospital. That is privacy. But when I talk, for example, to Fritz, when I talk, for example, to Mary, when I talk to Venice, then I told them, hey, this is my information. Okay? As a patient, for example, I told them, hey, I got this illness from blah, blah, blah. They need to keep that information to themselves, and that keeping of information to themselves is referred to as confidentiality. Confidentiality. Pag sinabing, uy, itago mo yung impormasyon, nurse ka, responsibility mo that that information will not be shared to others. That is confidentiality. Okay? That's one of the difference of your privacy and confidentiality. Now, another thing. Pag sinabi kong privacy, it restricts the public from accessing personal details about the person. Okay? Halimbawa, ayaw kong malaman ng publiko kung sino yung girlfriend ko. Halimbawa, ayaw kong malaman ng publiko kung saan ako nakatira. Halimbawa, ayaw kong malaman ng publiko kung anong earnings ko. I can keep that. No? That's private. Whereas confidentiality protects the information from the range of unauthorized individuals. Halimbawa, if Fritz is my nurse, Charmaine is an unauthorized individual. Kasi yung nurse ko si Fritz. Fritz can know information about me, but Charmaine could not know information about me. That is confidentiality. So if you can notice, privacy usually pertains to self. Okay? Akin. Gusto ko akin. Akin to. Walang makakaalam nito. Sarili ko to. Okay? But when I talk about confidentiality, I share the information to others, but this information is limited only to those people. Okay? The example that I'm giving you is that, no? For example, si Fritz yung nurse ko. Pagkatapos, si Charmaine, nurse din siya, pero hindi siya part ng care ko. She has no right to the information that I am sharing. Okay, she has no right to the information that I am sharing. Okay, that's one thing that you need to know about privacy and confidentiality. Now, major differences still in privacy and confidentiality in a while. Sige. Now, privacy is disallowed from interfering in the personal matters of a person. Halimbawa, bahay namin to. Within our bakuran, within our fences, okay, within our fences, you don't have the right. Okay? Wala kang right kung anong ginagawa namin dyan sa loob. Wala kang right. Okay? Wala kang right kung nagkikiss man kami dyan sa loob. Wala kang right whether we are doing private things inside. Because within our fences, that's our privacy. Okay? Now, when I talk about confidentiality, it's specified and trustworthy people are only allowed to access the information. Okay? Only specified and trustworthy people are allowed to have access to information. Pag sinabi kong specified and trustworthy people lamang yung makaka-access ng information, halimbawa, binigyan ko yung lawyer ko. Sabi ko sa lawyer, you have the right, no? You have the right to access the information about. Okay? My lawyer can access that information. But the next thing is that, can my lawyer share this information to others? Hindi. Because I only shared the information to him. Hindi ko siya sinabihan na, sige, lawyer, i-share mo yan sa iba, ipagkalat mo sa iba. Ay, hindi pa pwede. Now, paano kung ang lawyer ko, kailangan niya ng information, kailangan niya itong information, i-share sa iba para sa kaso ko? He needs to inform me. Okay? He needs to inform me. Hindi pa pwede, halimbawa, that the next day I will know that my lawyer told the media about my information because he is trying to save my ass. Hindi pwedeng ganon. Dapat alam ko na i-release niyon sa media and I could have given consent. The same way, in the healthcare industry, if you have given the information to your doctor, hindi din pwedeng sabihin na, halimbawa, doctor ko halimbawa si Dr. A. Tapos sabi ni Dr. A, nako, napakahirap na kaso to. I need to ask another doctor for his opinion. Hindi pwede na si Dr. A pupunta kay Dr. B tapos sabihin, Doc, I have a patient na ganito yung kaso, blah, blah, blah. Kailangan ko ng tulong. Dapat that doctor should still ask information from me. Dr. A should still ask for my consent before he would approach Dr. B. Okay? Now, another thing is that privacy is considered to be voluntary. Okay? In other words, pwede ngayon i-avail ko yung privacy ko. Bukas ayaw ko na naman. Okay? Bukas feeling ko artista ako. Ngayon private person ako. Pwede ganon. Voluntary yon. But when I talk about confidentiality, usually confidentiality is compulsory. Bakit compulsory? Ikaw bilang nurse, halimbawa, you have the obligation to protect the information of your patient. You have the obligation that this information about your patient must not be divulged to others. Okay? So it's because compulsory if the relationship between two parties is considered to be fiduciary. So pag sinabi nating fiduciary, meaning it involves trust. Okay? It involves trust. Okay? In other words, I trusted you as a patient. You are my nurse. I trusted you as a patient. So hindi pa pwede, Hindi pa pwede na ipagkakalat mo yung information. Next, privacy is a right. Okay? It is enshrined in the rights that you have a right to privacy. But confidentiality is an agreement. That agreement is usually between the nurse and between the doctor and the patient. So we call that, another term that we have for that is what you refer to as your privileged communication. Okay, so you have the term privileged communication. In other words, pribilehiyo mo na malaman itong impormasyon na to. It is your privilege to know this information and you ought not to share it to other people. Now, another thing is, this is the comparison. This is the comparison of your privacy versus confidentiality. Now, what's the meaning of privacy? The state of being secluded. Okay? So we can just refer to that state of being private. It's the state of being private. Okay? That's one thing. Then, pag sinabi ko namang confidentiality, expected from someone that he will not divulge the information. So kung titingnan nyo kanina yung difference, di ba sabi natin kanina, your privacy pertains to person. Your confidentiality pertains to information that will be already able to help you, to help you decide on this. Next, what is it? It is the right to be left alone. Yan yung privacy. Pero pag sinabi ko namang confidentiality, nandiyan naman yung word na fiduciary, to maintain secrecy of the sensitive information and documents. Now, concept, it limits access to public. Ito naman still prevent information. Ito, tulad din ng sinabi ko kanina, this refers to person, this one refers to information. When it comes to the obligation, di ba sabi natin kanina, privacy is optional or privacy is voluntary. In other words, choice ng tao yan. Okay? Halimbawa, choice ko na magtanggap ng bisita sa hospital. Let it be. Choice ko na wala akong bisita. Let it be. It's my choice. It's voluntary. But when I talk about confidentiality, okay, it's obligatory. In other words, obligasyon mo talaga na gawin yan because that is your professional job and that is your legal obligation when it comes to your patient. Now, disallowed. Pag sinabi nating disallowed, anong disallowed? Sa privacy, everyone is disallowed. Okay? And the affairs of the individual. So pag sinabi kong gusto kong maging private ngayon, ayaw kong may papasok. Hindi pwede. Walang papasok. Walang makakabisita sa akin. But in confidentiality, okay, only unauthorized people are disallowed. Di ba ang usual na sinasabi ko, confidentiality, may agreement between the nurse, the patient, and then the physician. So ibig sabihin guys, they are authorized people, they are allowed. Okay? But unauthorized people are disallowed actually to use this information. Unauthorized people are disallowed to use this information. Okay? Now, next thing. So privacy and confidentiality is actually enshrined in your 1987 Constitution. In the 1987 Constitution, it says in Article 3, Section 3, take note dapat memorize nyo na by ngayon, that Article 3 actually refers to your Bill of Rights. Your Article 3 refers to your Bill of Rights. Now, what does it mean? In Section 3, it indicates you have the right to privacy and confidentiality. The privacy of the patient must be assured at all stages of his treatment. Sabing ganon. Except in the following cases. Again, the patient has the right to be free from unwarranted public exposure, pero may malaking except for the following cases. 1. Mental physical condition is in controversy, and then the court orders him to submit a physical or mental examination by a physician. Halimbawa, sasabihin niya, nakapatay ako ng tao kasi baliw ako. Tapos parang hindi tayo sure whether the patient is psychotic or not. The court may actually order, hey doctor, this patient needs to be examined, and tell the court whether this patient is indeed psychotic or not. Okay? Tapos anong mangyayari? The doctor will go to the court and then the doctor will say to the court his findings. So kung manotice mo, parang walang privacy and confidentiality, di ba? Kasi na-share ng doctor sa court. But it is allowed. Okay? It is allowed if that patient is controversial when it comes to his case. Next, when the public health and safety so demand. Halimbawa, privacy and confidentiality nung time ng COVID-19. Hindi mo pwedeng sabihin, uy, may sipon ako, uy, may ubo ako. Hindi ko sasabihin sa'yo kasi confidentiality at privacy ko yun. Hindi pwede. Because if you will lie about your cough, if you will lie about your nose, if you will lie about your runny nose, you might have COVID and you might be spreading it to other individuals. The health of the public is at risk. No? So hindi pwedeng sabihin mo na hindi ako sasagot ng health declaration checklist kasi nga I feel that I feel that I need to have privacy and confidentiality. No, hindi pwede. Now, another thing is that your right to privacy and confidentiality will be so gone if you waive your right in writing. Baga sinulat mo talaga that I, as the citizen of the Republic of the Philippines, hereby waive my right to privacy and confidentiality. Then that's it. Everybody would have access to your own records. Okay. The next principle here is veracity. Okay, guys, so the next principle that we're talking about is your veracity. So when I talk about veracity, basically it's pertain to the ethics of telling the truth. It's the ethics of telling the truth. So when we talk about telling the truth, this means that we deal honestly with the patients, and then we deal honestly with patients and colleagues as they are. So this should be truth-telling and right to information. Now, what are the two basic commands under the principle of veracity? It tells you not to lie, and you must communicate with those who have the right to the truth. Okay, in other words, if you're talking about the patient, you must apply to the patient, and then the patient must have the information that he needs to know. Hindi pwede that you will be keeping that information from the patient because you just want not to hurt the patient. Okay, the principle of veracity tells you, okay, the principle of veracity tells you that the truth must be told to your patient. Okay, later on, we will discuss the issues that are brought about by this. Now, veracity in the healthcare setting would actually refer to the comprehensive, accurate, and objective transmission of information. Look at that one, students. Comprehensive, accurate, and objective. When I talk about comprehensive and accurate, meaning it should be complete. Comprehensive means complete information. When we talk about accurate, meaning the information is correct. No? Walang pagkakamali. And when we talk about objective, meaning it's not based from opinion. Okay, it's not based from your own opinion. As well as to the way the professional fosters the patient's or subject's understanding. Okay? So, dapat we foster the understanding of the individual. Hindi pa pwede halimbawa that I will be sharing the information in medical terms so that may maitatago ako sa pasyente ko. I should be able to share this information in terms that my patient will be able to understand. That's what we meant by veracity in the healthcare setting. Now, other than that, veracity in nursing, so where do we stand? We stand by showing respect for the people and allow them the right to autonomy. We give them all the information they need in order for them to make their own choices. Okay? Halimbawa, if the patient gets to be admitted in the ER, we are honestly talking to the patient. Okay? Especially pag makita mo yung pasyente walang pera, we are honest to the patient. I used to work in a private hospital and I talk to patients in such a way that patients will understand that even though if our prices may be lower compared to other private hospitals, we could not deny the fact that public hospitals are way cheaper compared to us. So pag sinabi ng patient, sir, wala kaming pera, we need to present the options to the patient. Ma'am, we can actually accommodate you here in the hospital. However, by the time that you will be here, you need to pay your bills. You need to pay your bills. May tinatawag po tayong no deposit, no? So hindi pwede sa ER na sabihin ko, ma'am, mag-deposit ka muna for us to care for you. No, we have what we refer to as your no deposit. In other words, we need to take care of you. We need to take care of you. Kahit wala kang pera. But then the continuity or the continuation of that is that kung may pera ka, here, you can go in the private setting. But if wala kang pera, as a nurse, we inform them of the possibility of getting admitted in the public hospital. Sir, bakit magkaganon? Kasi guys, if they will stay in the private hospital, okay, you need to consider where will they get the money that they will be paying for. They will have an obligation. They will have an obligation. They will have an obligation as to how to deal with it. Now they will have an obligation as to how to pay for it. Okay? So those are the things that we need to consider. Now, the three reasons for the necessity of veracity. So this is based on respect owed to others, and veracity has a strong association with the obligations of fidelity and promise. So when we promise our patient that we will tell them the truth, we tell them the truth. And then this is about the relationship of trust between persons, which is necessary for intervention and cooperation. Diba? We demand our patient the information that we need. Diba? Sinasabihin natin pasyente, uy, patient, dapat sabihin mo yung mga information that we need so that we may be able to manage you. In the same way, for our patients to give us also that information, we also need to give them the right information. Hindi pa pwede na ay mababa yung laboratories niya, bukas na lang natin sabihin, baka mamatay. No, we do not think like that. Now, at the core of this relationship is that there should be confidence and reliance on others to be truthful. So hindi pwede that you demand trust from your patient but you cannot be trusted. Okay? If you can notice, even in the Constitution, Article 3, line number 4, they talk about the right to information. And this right to information talks about actually, it talks about your veracity. That right to information tells you that in the course of the hospital treatment, okay, in the course of the treatment of these patients, ano pong pwedeng mangyari? The patients or their legal guardians have the right to be informed of the result of the evaluation of the nature and extent of the disease. So hindi pwedeng itago po sa kanila ang impormasyon na yun. Now, what are the violations of veracity? Look at this. There are two main words there. You have the word omission, then commission. Pag sinabi kong omission, omit. Okay, omit. Halimbawa, anong ginawa ko? Okay, I omitted critical, relevant facts which are intentionally left out when disclosing the patient's information. Halimbawa, I knew that laboratory results came in. And from the laboratory results, I knew that the patient has cancer. When the patient asked, nurse, Nandyan na ba yung laboratory results ko? I said, yes, ma'am. Your CBC is normal. Your electrolytes are normal. Your urinalysis is also normal. But I left out the part about cancer. Okay? So ano pong pwedeng sabihin natin? Di ba I told you that when it comes to the diagnosis of the patient, we are not the professional who are supposed to divulge this to the patient. Hindi natin yung obligasyon bilang nurse, ano? At hindi natin responsibility. Maliban dyan, hindi po tayo trained to do that. So ano pong dapat natin sabihin kay patient? Sir, nandiyan na yung CBC nyo, okay naman. Yung reanalysis natin, normal din naman. Sir, nandiyan na rin yung biopsy result ninyo, pero si doctor na yung magdi-discuss sa inyo. Okay? So hindi natin pwedeng sabihin na, o hindi na, for example, on the earlier example that I gave you, I only mentioned CBC electrolytes urinalysis. Parang tinago ko sa kanya. Okay? Parang tinago ko sa kanya. Next, commission. So commission, this means that the medical personnel intentionally tell the patient or her family a lie. Halimbawa, sinabihan ko, sir, normal naman ang result ng biopsy ninyo. Whereas the biopsy result is actually abnormal. Okay? I lied to the patient. That's not good. And then a third, more subtle way to violate the principle of veracity is to cloak the truth in medical jargon. Okay? Halimbawa, sasabihin, ma'am, so far, according dito sa inyong ultrasound, it can be seen that there are cloudiness in the blah, blah, blah. It can also be seen that the parenchyma is blah, blah, blah. And then it could also be seen that there are lesions in the blah, blah, blah. Tapos tatanungin ka ng pasyente, normal ba yon? Yun na po yung result, ma'am. Okay? Ano naman paki ng pasyente kung ano yung parenchyma? Ano naman paki ng pasyente kung ano yung cloudiness sa ultrasound? Hindi niya yun naiintindihan. Okay? So it's obvious that you're trying to hide an information to the patient by using medical jargons. So please, that is a violation of the principle of veracity. So if you cannot tell the patient, let the doctor do it, but do not lie to the patient. Now, what are the cultural considerations on truth-telling here in the Philippines? One thing that you consider is this. There is this family orientation on illness and confrontational attitude. So meron talagang problema when it comes to your orientation on illness and confrontational attitude. So ano pong ibig sabihin natin dyan? Sometimes the family requests the physician, Doc, don't tell the truth muna because the patient may feel harm, hopelessness, and depression and refusal to undergo treatments. Okay? Doc, wag mo munang sabihang may cancer, baka mamatay pag malaman niyang may cancer siya. That happens, and honestly, I've encountered that in that situation. That's why as a nurse, you are not supposed to lie, and then if it talks about the diagnosis, it's best for the doctor to disclose it. Okay? Kahit ng mga residente namin sa hospital does not disclose the diagnosis to the patient unless the attending physician will be there. So if you can notice in the hospital, di ba may mga residente, these are medical doctors who are still under training now. And then you have the attending physician or the attending consultant. So even the residents does not disclose the information to the patient if it is very sensitive. Instead, they wait for the attending physician to do it. Okay? So may mga ganitong request kayong maririnig. Pagkatapos, may non-confrontational attitude kasi tayong mga Pilipino. Okay? Ano po sinasabi natin ng non-confrontational attitude? Di ba, halimbawa, kung may problema kayo sa akin, the tendency is that you could not tell me directly. Di ba? Or kahit sa mga friends mo, you cannot tell your friends right away directly because we Filipinos tend to be non-confrontational. Okay? So ano po nagiging effect when it comes to healthcare? It prevents issues from being addressed. Halimbawa, ang issue sana na naging okay na. So issues could have been resolved in the early stages, pero by the time that they know it, already late. Halimbawa, may mga pasyente kaming may cancer tapos ayaw ng family na ipaalam sa kanya. Tapos by the time that the patient knew it, kasi eventually malalaman niya din yun eh. By the time that the patient knew it, alam mo anong sabi ng pasyente? Di sana you informed me earlier. Instead of me sana undergoing the chemotherapy and treatment, I could have enjoyed my life if I know that chemotherapy and treatment will be killing me. Okay? That's why, you know what, even my experience would tell me that as a nurse, wala pa rin mawawala if you tell the truth. If you are not in the position to tell the truth, endorse it to the physician, especially when it comes to the diagnosis. It's really very difficult. It's really very difficult if you will hide the truth from the patient. Because take note, each individual is different. Each individual is different. Yung iba, kapag malamang may cancer, magtatago, magde-depress, ayaw nang kausapin ng world. Pero yung iba, pag malamang may cancer, they will enjoy their life for the next 6 months if they know that 6 months is all that they have. Okay? So I have heard one time of a case na yung nangyari is that about 4 months na lang sana, mga 4 months na lang, yung parang 2 months na lang yung natitira sa kanya. When the family informed her that her condition is very severe. Okay? Simple lang naman yung sinabi ng patient. Sabi niya, buhay ko to. Why did you decide for me? Okay? Instead of me sana staying here in the hospital, I could have realized earlier, I could have spent time with my kids and my family at home. Okay? So now, if you would look at this, our culture is actually non-confrontational. Okay? And that non-confrontational culture is actually because of the value system of shame or di ba nahihiya. Di ba? Oftentimes, sasasabi, nahihiya kasi ako Ayaw kong kausapin si sir kasi nahihiya ako. Ayaw ko munang magsabi ng concern ko kasi nahihiya ako. Pero here comes the end of the semester, wala ka na naming magagawa. You need to say your concern. Wala din namang hiyang nagaganap, but it's sometimes too late for us to address the problem. Okay? So may mga ganong nangyayari even in the healthcare system. No? That's why we have the cultural consideration on the truth-telling. If you will be encountering this problem in the future, as I've mentioned, if it talks about diagnosis, leave it to the physician. Leave it to the physician. Huwag na kayong nagpapakamartir at saka sabihin na nako, hindi ko to kaya, masasaktan yung patient. No, you'll never know if the patient will be hurt actually or not. Okay, you'll never know if the patient will actually hurt them or not. Okay, sabi nga nila, di ba, the truth will set you free. The truth will set you free. Okay, do you have any questions in mind before I would dismiss you?